I'm Claire Barnhart, and I am a bed and breakfast owner in South Texas, and we are Goliad County Democrats. I like your philosophy. I like the fact that you've pointed out a weakness we have in Texas, which is we don't move forward fast enough. People need to see action, and I think Progress Texas knows that.
It's Friday, Good Friday, April 18th, 2025, and this is the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch, rapid response on the breaking news stories Texas progressives need to know. I'm Chris Mosier. The morning after a morning like yesterday's for Texas progressives, we've been reminded of the harsh political realities that we struggle against in this state, and there's plenty to talk about on that front this Friday. But there's also plenty to inspire our renewed resistance and resolve to continue that struggle and an opportunity to express that steadfast determination. It's going to take time for the full impact that private school vouchers will eventually have on our schools and our school kids to develop. And that requires long-term vigilance on our part. But here's the lay of the land as of this morning. Governor Greg Abbott, not only borrowing from the Donald Trump playbook, but enlisting Trump himself, relied to the last on intimidation and domination of Republican House members upon whose spinelessness and self-interest the governor placed his bets, and he won big. Jasper Shearer at the Texas Tribune notes that Democratic Austin Representative James Tallarico had noted growing bipartisan support of the idea of putting vouchers to the voters, but that the governor caught wind of that trend and began, quote, calling members into his office one by one and threatening to veto all the bills of any member who votes for this amendment, unquote. And in no uncertain terms, backed by last year's election cycle as an example, the governor assured his party members he'd turn on them in reprisal for wavering, just like he turned on several others who had dared in past sessions to think of the kids back home. Abbott's folks, of course, deny this, but one Republican, freshman Jeff Berry of Pearland, pretty much confirms it, saying online, quote, if I voted against it, I would have had every statewide and national political figure against me, not to mention all of my bills vetoed. The consequences were dire with no upside at all, unquote. No upside, of course, beyond preserving and protecting the tradition and institution of public schools in Texas. Clearly for GOP lawmakers, a minor consideration compared to their personal political pursuits. Carrie Heath and John Moritz at the Austin American-Statesman note that Donald Trump called to a group of Republicans prior to the vote in which he admonished them to stay loyal to the governor. The Statesman provides also an early glimpse of the groveling that's likely to follow for Republicans facing those constituents back home in their small-town districts. Stan Lambert of Abilene, for example, is already making excuses for his vote against his own school kids, claiming that a no vote would have been meaningless since vouchers were going to pass anyway. Progressive folks living in smaller towns should watch closely as your local schools begin to suffer and remind your neighbors of whose votes made that possible. Jim Henson, director of the Texas Politics Project at the University of Texas, sees the voucher win as both the further expansion of Governor Abbott's control at the Capitol and that, quote, going forward, we have now committed to what is essentially a new entitlement program in an environment of extreme economic uncertainty, unquote. And on that note, Andrew Freeman at CBS Austin takes a look at what Texas Republicans have been blatantly ignoring, the results of the voucher experiment in other states, where grim reality portends a similar disaster looming for the Lone Star State. Texas joins about a dozen other states with universal voucher programs. In keeping with our traditions, of course, ours is the biggest. Arizona, for one example, is now burdened by a ballooning budget and unaccountable spending. Arizona Education Association President Marisol Garcia laments, quote, it's just been a complete mess. This is a diversion of public tax money going to private industries, and we should all be afraid of how this impacts the broader public. The impact on public schools has been tremendous. We've seen a massive turnover of educators because we've been unable to meet any sort of salary increases over the past few years. A lot of this money being pivoted to private organizations has done nothing to prepare our students for a brighter future, unquote. Considering the starting baseline right now in Texas for our public schools already shamefully underfunded even with a new increase, and our teachers already leaving the profession in droves before vouchers even kick in here, we're off to an even worse start than Arizona had. Make no mistake, Republicans know that most Texans have little interest in private school vouchers and that they only help a few select rich folks in private industries, but the opposition of people like you and me, progressive folks, gives those conservatives an extra spring in their step. Owning the liberals is what they live for. Collateral damage be damned. Another example of such ugly at the Capitol just yesterday in the immediate wake of their voucher win, as Alejandro Martinez at the Texas Tribune covers a partisan brawl that erupted over what normally would have and should have been a routine remembrance of a departed and beloved political leader. Hardline Republicans yesterday blocked a memorial resolution honoring Cecile Richards, former president of Planned Parenthood and daughter of legendary Governor Ann Richards, a shameful and empty gesture of contempt that in its drama also sidetracked the rest of an entire slate of memorials for the likes of Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee and even Jill Glover, a Texas conservative activist. The charge was led by oily twerp Nate Schatzline of Fort Worth and roundly despised stunt queen Brian Harrison of Midlothian, both of whose petty bullshit is no surprise, really. What you and I should take from all of this was nicely illuminated, actually, by Representative Terry Canales of Edinburgh, who asked his wild-eyed Republican counterparts, quote, "Are you aware that by having spent the amount of time that you've spent up there, you've actually honored Cecile," unquote. And yes, drawing this degree of scorn from Republicans should be seen by progressives as confirmation of the legend of Cecile Richards. Those Republicans are beneath her legacy. Man, who's fired up and looking to blow off some steam? Well, lucky you, there are opportunities once again this weekend, tomorrow, across Texas and across the country to do exactly that with growing legions of the like-minded. Sandra Hernandez at the Houston Chronicle writes that the 50501 movement, a group opposed to the actions of Donald Trump's administration and the Project 2025 agenda, will once again host nationwide protests and rallies tomorrow, Saturday, April 19th. One listing of individual events shows 23 across the state of Texas in both our big cities and our smaller towns. There's one within a couple of hours of just about every part of the great state of Texas, and we encourage you to show up, be loud, and be proud. See the link at the show notes for that list, and as always, protest smart and safe. San Antonio and Austin friends, Progress Texas is proud to welcome San Antonio Mayor Ron Nirenberg as our guest for a live podcast taping at our Party for Progress on Tuesday, May the 6th, and you are invited. We look forward to a long overdue visit to Alamo City. Again, mark that date, Tuesday, May 6th, live pod taping with Mayor Ron Nirenberg, and good fun with you in San Antonio. See the show notes and get your tickets right now. Thanks to Austin Kaplan and the Kaplan Law Firm, Nicolette Ardiente, Shannon Hernseer, Will Judy, Tracy Miller, Julianne Reeves, and more for their generous support of our San Antonio Party for Progress coming up on May the 6th. Our mission at Progress Texas is to counter the conservative disinformation machine, but they far outmatch us in funding. Oil and tech billionaires and religious right-wing activist groups spend a lot of money keeping their audiences in the dark, and if you've come to appreciate the light that we shine on important political news in Texas on a daily, ongoing basis, please know that our regular, everyday listeners form a key component of our funding. If that's you, we could use your support as a monthly contributor, and no amount is too small. Go to progresstexas.org/donate. Thanks so much to Betty Ferguson, Larry Russell, and Jeffrey Learman, all of whom are on the team. We appreciate all of y'all. While you're at the website, be sure and hit our web store to grab the merch to match your progressive values. You're going to see Y'all Means All Revolution and our most popular Humans Against Ted Cruz t-shirts. They are all union printed right here in Texas and all waiting for you now at progresstexas.org. That's the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch for this Friday, April 18th, 2025. Links to all these original stories can be found in our show notes. Progress Texas is a nonprofit, rapid response media organization promoting progressive messages and actions. While campaigns come and go, we're the permanent home for progressive media and action in the Lone Star State. I'm Chris Mosier. Thanks for listening. Have a great weekend. Happy Easter. We'll see you again on Monday.